That moment says a lot about who Coco Gauff is, and even more about what the rise of Alexandra Eala is doing to the atmosphere of the tour. Because, let's be honest, what happened at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships wasn't normal. You had a global star, a Grand Slam champion, standing on court after a brutal 3-set win, emotionally drained, physically pushed, and instead of soaking in the moment, she could feel that the energy in the stadium was already shifting toward the next match, toward another player, toward a different story. A lot of players would resist that. Some would subtly push back. A few might even let it affect their tone. Gauff did the opposite. She leaned into it. That line, light, almost playful on the surface, was actually a masterclass in crowd intelligence. She acknowledged reality without fighting it. She didn't pretend the moment was hers alone. She shared it. And in doing that, she quietly took control of it. That's not accidental. Gauff has been in the spotlight since she was 15. She understands something many players take years to learn. Crowds aren't enemies to win over. They're energy to manage. If you try to fight a crowd that isn't with you, you lose twice. Once emotionally and once in performance. So instead, she flipped the dynamic. By saying, "I know you're here for Alex." She removed the tension in the stadium. She turned what could have been an uncomfortable divide into a shared moment. Suddenly, the crowd isn't against her. They're part of a bigger story she's acknowledging. And that's where this gets really interesting. Because this wasn't just about Gauff's composure. It was about the scale of the Eala effect. When a player like Alexandra Eala draws that kind of support, thousands of fans, national pride spilling into international arenas, chants echoing before she even steps on court, that changes the environment for everyone else playing that day. Even top 5 players feel it. And Gauff didn't just handle it professionally. She handled it strategically. She turned a potentially awkward situation into a moment that made her more likable, more relatable, and more in control. There's also a subtle confidence in that response. You don't make a comment like that unless you're completely secure in your place. Gauff didn't need the crowd's full attention to validate her performance. She had already done the hardest part, saving match points, winning under pressure. The result spoke for itself. So instead of demanding recognition, she offered grace. That's a different level of maturity. And it reveals something else about elite athletes at the very top. They don't just compete with rackets, they manage narratives in real time. Meanwhile, on the other side of this moment, Eala's presence is doing something rare. She's not just winning matches, she's shifting crowd behavior. She's turning neutral venues into emotionally charged environments. That kind of pull usually takes years, sometimes entire careers, to build. So when these two forces meet, Gauff's composure and Eala's momentum, you get moments like this. Moments that aren't about winners or losers, but about how the sport itself is evolving in front of you. Gauff didn't raise her voice. She didn't push back. She read the room perfectly and responded in a way that made the entire stadium pause for a second. And in that pause, she reminded everyone exactly why she belongs where she is. This is where the story really levels up, because what Coco Gauff did wasn't just classy, it was calculated in the smartest possible way. She didn't survive the moment, she rewrote it. Think about the situation around the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships. A packed stadium. A crowd emotionally invested in Alexandra Eala. Chants going one direction. Energy tilted heavily to one side before a single point is played. That's usually a psychological advantage. Gauff turned it into neutral ground, and then into her own weapon. When she said she pretended the crowd was cheering for her, that's not just a funny post-match quote. That's elite mental conditioning. It's the same principle top competitors use across sports. You don't try to change reality. You reinterpret it until it works for you. And once she did that, everything shifted. Because now the noise isn't pressure, it's rhythm. It's not hostility, it's fuel. That's exactly how players like Novak Djokovic built dominance in hostile arenas. Not by silencing crowds, but by absorbing them and converting that energy into focus. Gauff is clearly operating from that same playbook, just with her own personality layered on top. And then comes the part that really stands out. She didn't stop at managing the moment, she elevated it. Thanking Eala? That's not standard tour etiquette. That's perspective. Because Gauff understands something bigger than the match itself. The sport grows when new audiences show up, even if they're not there for you. Most players see a crowd like that and think, this is unfair. Gauff looked at it and thought, this is what the sport needs. That's a long-term mindset. By acknowledging the Filipino support base, she wasn't just being generous, she was aligning herself with the future of tennis. More fans, more regions engaged, more emotional investment in matches. That benefits everyone at the top level, including her. And there's a subtle power move in that too. When you openly appreciate the crowd that's rooting against you, you take away their edge. You remove the tension. You make it harder for that energy to feel hostile. Suddenly, instead of a home versus away atmosphere, it becomes something closer to a shared spectacle. That's psychological control without confrontation. Meanwhile, the result 6-0, 6-2 speaks to how completely she executed that mindset. This wasn't a player distracted by the moment. This was a player who had already solved it before the first game even settled. And on the other side, Alexandra Eala represents something just as important. She's creating environments where top players have to adapt, where neutral courts stop feeling neutral, where fan bases travel emotionally, even across continents. That's rare for a 20-year-old, and it's why moments like this feel bigger than a single match. So what you're really seeing here is two different kinds of strength colliding. Eala bringing a surge of new energy into the sport, Gauff showing how champions absorb that energy and stay in control, and the most impressive part? Gauff didn't need to fight the moment to win it. She understood it, reshaped it, and then walked through it like it belonged to her all along. That's not just composure. That's mastery. She adapted, and that's the part that separates a top player from a true champion. Because when Coco Gauff faced the wave that is Alexandra Eala, she didn't try to push against it. She read it, understood it, and found a way to exist above it. That stretch, from Dubai to BNP Paribas Open, tells you everything about both players, but especially about Gauff's mindset. In Dubai, she solved the environment and dominated at an Indian Wells. She stepped into a completely different kind of test, one where her body, not the crowd, became the obstacle. And here's where her reaction becomes even more telling. Most players, after retiring, focus inward. The pain, the frustration, the missed opportunity. Gauff looked outward. Her first instinct wasn't to protect her own narrative, it was to protect Eala's. That line, "I don't want to take anything away from the way she was playing," isn't just polite. It's deeply aware. She understood exactly how moments like that get framed. A retirement can instantly shift the story from Eala was outplaying her to Gauff got injured. She refused to let that happen. That's respect at a competitive level you don't always see. And it matters because, in that moment, Eala wasn't just an opponent. She was a player building credibility, momentum, and belief. Gauff recognized that and chose not to diminish it, even unintentionally. Flip the perspective for a second. Eala, at the net, didn't celebrate, didn't overreact, didn't turn it into a moment about herself. She checked on her opponent. Simple, human, immediate. Two players. High stakes. Global stage. And the interaction that defines the moment is quiet kindness. That's rare. And it adds another layer to this evolving dynamic between them. Because now this isn't just about matchups or scorelines. It's about mutual awareness. Gauff sees what Eala is becoming. Eala understands what Gauff represents. There's competition there, absolutely, but it's grounded in respect, not friction. The numbers you mentioned, the crowds, the diaspora, the rising attention explain the environment. But they don't explain behavior. Behavior is choice. Gauff had multiple paths available to her. Frame Dubai as a hostile environment, treat Indian Wells as an unfortunate injury story, keep everything neutral and generic. She chose none of those. Instead, she embraced the crowd she didn't own, credited the opponent she could have overshadowed, and reframed both situations in a way that elevated the sport itself. That's not just professionalism, that's leadership. And it tells you something important about where women's tennis is heading. You've got players like Eala bringing in entirely new audiences, fans who show up loudly, emotionally, unapologetically. And you've got players like Gauff who are experienced enough to understand that this isn't a threat, it's expansion. That combination is powerful. Because when rising stars create noise and established stars know how to channel it, the sport doesn't fracture, it grows. So no, she didn't complain about the imbalance. She did something far more impactful. She validated it. She respected it. And then she competed through it, on her terms. That's how you stay at the top while the game around you is changing. This is exactly the kind of moment that defines careers, and honestly, you've captured the core of it. This wasn't just about winning or losing, it was about control under pressure. What Coco Gauff did in Dubai wasn't the only way to survive the Alexandra Eala effect, it was the highest level version of how to handle it. Because let's be real, players always have three options in that situation. Resist the crowd, emotional drain, tension, distraction, ignore the crowd, safer, but passive use the crowd, hardest. But most powerful Gauff picked the third one. And that's why it feels like a power move. When she said she pretended the cheers were for her, that's not just clever, it's elite mental reframing. She didn't try to change reality. She changed her relationship to it. That's a skill you usually see in veterans who've been through years of hostile environments. And here's where your point really lands. She didn't just handle the moment, she elevated it for everyone watching. At the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships, she could have walked off with a standard, tough crowd, happy to win answer. Instead, she publicly credited Eala for bringing in a new audience. That flips the entire narrative. Crowd noise, not disrespect, but growth imbalance, not unfairness, but expansion opponent, not just a rival, but a catalyst that's long-term thinking. Then fast forward to BNP Paribas Open and you see the same mindset under a completely different kind of pressure, injury. And again, her instinct wasn't self-protection. It was fairness to her opponent. That's not normal. Most athletes, in that moment, default to explaining themselves. Gauff instead protected Eala's credibility. That tells you she's not just competing match to match. She's aware of how narratives shape careers. Now, about the big question you asked, was it the ultimate power move or just survival? It's a power move, but not in an aggressive sense. It's quiet dominance. Because the strongest position you can be in as an athlete is this. Backhand index pointing right, nothing external can take you out of your game. Not the crowd, not the storyline, not even the emotional tilt of a stadium. And Gauff showed that. At the same time, the Eala effect is very real, and you're right, it's not going anywhere. What Alexandra Eala is building is bigger than results. It's atmosphere. It's identity. It's a traveling fan base that turns neutral courts into something personal. That forces the entire tour to adapt. Some players will struggle with it. Some will try to block it out. The smartest ones, like Gauff, will learn to ride it. And that's why this moment matters beyond one match. It's a preview of where women's tennis is heading. Louder crowds, more national energy, more emotionally charged environments. The players who thrive won't be the ones who demand silence. They'll be the ones who can perform inside the noise. Gauff already proved she can. And Eala? She's the reason that noise exists in the first place. That combination is what makes this rivalry, if it keeps developing, so compelling.